So, what if one single vote, on one particular day, sent the UK hurtling down a completely different timeline? Today, that's what we're doing. We're going to explore an alternate 2016, a world where the Brexit referendum goes the other way. We're going to uncover a story of a Britain that never left the EU, and how that one decision could have completely reshaped its own future and, well, the future of Europe.
It really all comes down to this one moment, doesn't it? June 23, 2016. Just imagine for a second if only a few percentage points had swung the other way. That single result would have created ripples affecting the entire next decade in ways we're probably only just beginning to grasp.
In our alternate timeline, this is the number that changes absolutely everything: 54%. The Remain campaign manages to secure a decisive victory. David Cameron gets to stay on as Prime Minister, a bit bruised for sure, but still in power. And the UK wakes up to a future that is still firmly inside the European Union.
But hang on. A Remain win doesn't just magically erase all the deep divisions that the campaign exposed. Not by a long shot. I mean, you still have 46% of the country wanting out, so the government is forced into a major reckoning. And this leads to a completely reshaped role for the UK within the EU, starting with a brand new landmark agreement.
So to heal that massive divide, the government negotiates this critical compromise that becomes known as the London Protocol. And this is a huge deal. It basically creates a red card system, giving Britain and other national parliaments way more power to block EU legislation they don't agree with.
So instead of leaving the club, the UK actually becomes the leader of a powerful new group within it. It starts championing national sovereignty from the inside, forming what gets called a sovereign-sceptic bloc, that's sovereign skeptic, made up of nations that want a less centralized EU. Britain basically transforms into the most influential voice for reform in all of Brussels.
Okay, so this new political settlement, it has an immediate and really powerful ripple effect right through the economy. With that whole question of EU membership finally resolved, the cloud of uncertainty that plagued our timeline, it just never gathers. And the impact is felt right in people's wallets.
First off, the British pound stays strong. It avoids that crash which cushions the country from the global inflation that would hit later on. Then you look at manufacturing. There's no threat of tariffs. And this means major car makers like Nissan and Toyota don't just stay. They double down. They make the UK their #1 hub for building electric vehicles for all of Europe. And this is one of the biggest economic wins of all. Because the free movement of people is still a thing. Top tech talent keeps flowing into London from all over the continent. This allows the city to forge this powerful Silicon axis with Berlin, creating a dominant force in AI and fintech that can actually rival the US and China.
And the numbers here are just, well, they're stark. Just think about this for a second. Without all the friction of visas for EU talent, the UK's tech sector grows a staggering 25% faster in this reality. That is a massive difference, and it's fueled entirely by having frictionless access to Europe's talent pool.
But the impact goes way beyond the economy. On the global stage, with the UK's diplomatic and military might still fully integrated, the EU itself evolves. It becomes something far more formidable.
You just have to look at the 2022 crisis in Ukraine. In this world, the UK isn't acting in parallel to the EU. It's the actual critical bridge between Washington and Brussels. This forges a much more unified, rapid, and powerful Anglo-European response, leading to tougher sanctions and a deeply integrated defense fund.
And would you just look at the relationship with France? The endless arguments over fishing rights and migration that really defined our timeline, they get replaced by a genuine strategic partnership. Paris and London become the security core of Europe, working together to tackle instability in places like North Africa. It's a relationship of allies, not adversaries, night and day.
All right, so we've seen the global and the economic picture. But how would all these changes have actually affected daily life and the very fabric of the United Kingdom itself?
Well, for starters, with the whole EU question settled, the main argument for Scottish independence just evaporates. I mean, the key platform for another referendum was all about an independent Scotland rejoining the EU. With the whole UK still inside the bloc, that argument loses all its power, and the union stays remarkably stable.
And you see this stability reflected right across society. Essential services like the NHS managed to avoid major staffing crises, all thanks to the continued flow of doctors and nurses from the EU. And at the same time, a whole new generation, we can call them Generation Remain, grows up with a deeply European identity, taking full advantage of all those student exchange programs.
So when you pull it all together, it becomes really clear that we're not just looking at a few different policies here. No, we are looking at two fundamentally different versions of the United Kingdom that emerged from that single day back in June 2016.
This table really lays out the two divergent paths perfectly. On one side, you have our timeline, a Britain focused on border control with lagging GDP growth and constant friction with the EU. But on the other side, you have this alternate path, a Britain that's leading Northern European growth, shaping EU policy from within and focusing all its political energy on big projects like green energy and infrastructure.
And this single phrase, it really captures the absolute essence of this alternate world. The national identity isn't one of defiant isolation. No, instead, the UK's global role is defined by its power to shape and lead the entire continent's future from a position of real strength right at the main table.
And all of that leaves us with a final, kind of provocative thought to chew on. If this was the reality, a wealthier, more cohesive, and deeply European UK, what would the political landscape even look like today? How would people have voted in a world where Brexit wasn't the single defining issue of a generation? That's something to think about.